Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Folks, welcome back to the Ageless Athlete Podcast. This is your host, Kush Khandelwal, and in today's pod, we visit Yosemite National Park with none other than Mr. El Capitan, Hans Florine himself. Hans has repeatedly set and broken one of the most coveted speed records in the world. The nose of El Capitan, the most storied big wall in the world, 8 different times. In 2012, Hans, alongside climbing partner Alex Honnold, took the record again in 2 hours and 23 minutes, lowering the previous record by a full 13 minutes. Hans also holds numerous other speed records in Yosemite National Park and all over the globe. Hans also won the first International Speed Climbing Championships in 91 and has held the US national title 11 times. He won gold at the ESPN X Games 3 years in a row. Hans is a pleasure to chat with. Knowledgeable, articulate, yet humble and funny in a way only the most successful and grateful amongst us can be. Hans shares stories previously untold, including advice on staying healthy, taking on hard challenges willfully, and his reflections on aging gracefully. And stay tuned in till the end as we have some exciting giveaways to announce from Hans himself, as well as his sponsors, Coros smartwatches and Physivantage nutrition products. Monday morning, April 1st, but today is not an April Fool's Day joke. We really do have Hans Florine, Mr. El Capitan, on the show. Excited to dive into different topics with Hans. Hans is obviously known for climbing a lifetime in Yosemite. Hans, let me begin by just asking you this. Is climbing on El Capitan and the nose, is it still as captivating to you as the first time you laid your eyes on it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, captivating is a great word to use. I mean, there's thousands of words to use for El Cap, and none of them will really capture unless you're standing there at the base. And maybe you have to climb it too, but I'm up to 177 ascents of the nose. So, not the nose, sorry, of El Cap. I've done 26 different routes on El Cap, 117 times on the nose. The others are all other smattering of routes. I'll point out often when I'm go around speaking, whether it's a bank or construction company or REI or climbing gym, like where is Yosemite and why is Yosemite this mecca where it draws people from around the world? And I point out that 3,000 feet is an amazing giant chunk of granite, and it's a mile and a half wide. But rocks that tall and that big do exist in other places in the world. If you go to Baffin Island, you're talking about a float plane or a sailboat or something to get to the base, right? If you're talking about Kazakhstan, you're talking about a 3-day trek with yaks, or if you're daring enough, get into a Russian helicopter, right, to get to the base. Yosemite, you have a 15-minute walk from your car door to the base of a 3,000-foot cliff, which is just this combination of wild terrain and crazy, easy accessibility, right? Those are the two things combined that make El Capitan amazing. Huge, gigantic, wild, and it's really accessible, right? I named more things there than I wanted to, but just basically fantastic, big, really accessible.
It is absolutely a marvel of nature that there's this beautiful valley that people can drive right into and set their eyes on El Capitan, a short walk if they decide to do that, or if they take their binoculars out, they can actually maybe even with their naked eyes they can spot people on the climb. And I think that is one huge reason, like you said, like just the approach for all kinds of people, climbers and non-climbers alike. Yes, I've climbed a bit in Yosemite, but then also taking people out there for the first time and having their faces light up. That is such a pleasing sight. Talking of taking people, new people to Yosemite, you have taken all kinds of people over the years and taken them up the nose. You have taken beginners, you have taken adaptive climbers. I can only imagine how much work that must be. What compels you to put in so much hard work to share this climb with others?
I think that any guide or someone who introduces something, an activity to people that are new to it, whether it's like surfing, you take people out surfing and they're just so psyched and, maybe amazed by your skill, but they're just so big, bright-eyed, this natural free ride that the waves give them. Or it could be kayaking, or it could be rappelling. A guide knows this, that like you're getting to relive how crazy, obsessed you were with climbing those first months and years that you climbed and how cool it is. I mean, for climbers, it's the physical movement, you're problem solving with the tip of your fingers to the tip of your toes and using your head. And it's also, outdoor climbing takes you to places that are amazing, right? That's why I say those two different things. There's a physical experience of you're using every muscle in your body. A beginner, when they come down, they've been holding on for dear life, right? And for that, whatever they can hold on for, 2 to 7 minutes to get to the top of a 20-foot wall in a climbing gym, they were thinking about one thing, that wall. How can I get up? How can I not maybe die? They're so scared. And they come down and every muscle in their body is tight. And it's kind of this physical meditation, right? So that's this one part is the physical. And the other is just taking control of your scene as part of the nature thing. Like, I want to climb that rock over there, or that mountain, or that terrain, and I'm going to find a way to get up it. So there's this, not so much puff your chest out of conquering things. I mean, we all know the famous quote from Warren Harding, El Cap looked a lot better than me. But all this to say that, you're getting to venture out into these incredible places and experience incredible places. So not pairing up with the same old experienced partner on El Cap means I get to see and be part of this amazing first time with people on El Cap. I mean, when you get to the top of the cliff after being on it 2 days, 3 days, or a long day, and being on it, you see it in people's face and you're reliving it yourself. You get all that same energy.
I experience the same kind of pleasure when I take people climbing. I haven't taken anybody up El Cap, but I've taken some new people up some multi-pitch routes, single pitch routes, and to see their reticence and their nervousness and their fear slowly transform into joy and delight, that gives me just so much pleasure. It makes me think that whatever I'm doing has some worth. So I just love as asking this question, and particularly asking you, because this is not just a multi-pitch climb or a single pitch climb. This is taking somebody up maybe the most iconic rock climb. And thanks for introducing this climb to so many people. Could you just summarize, Hans, if you can, because we have listeners to the show who are not all avid rock climbers that obsess over El Capitan. Could you just summarize, if it's possible, what does it entail? A normal ascent versus some of the ascents you do when you're climbing the nose really quickly.
If people get to check out pictures and stuff, I'm going to just hold up the book, but we'll put pictures on the post for Instagram and stuff. For that person that's out there in the world listening, they're starting at zero. Yosemite, El Capitan is in Yosemite. Yosemite is in California, and Yosemite is about a 4-hour drive from San Francisco. if the listener doesn't know where San Francisco, you can, of course, Google it. You could Google El Capitan, of course, but there's the verbal description, right? We're in Yosemite Park, which is in California, which is 4 hours from San Francisco, which is in the United States, the western seaboard. This wall was first ascended by Warren Harding, Wayne Mary, and George Whitmore in 1958. They spent 33 days spread out over 18 months rigging lines on it and got 2/3 of the way up. And they did a final push of 12 days. They lived, ate, slept on the wall for 12 days, and they made it to the top. It's 3,000 feet tall. And so if you look at the tallest building in New York, it's twice as high as the tallest building in New York. The Dubai Tower, which is the tallest building in the world, also known as the Burj Khalifa, is 2,550 feet. So El Cap is 500 feet taller than, or about 500 feet taller than, the Burj Khalifa. Since 1958, people have climbed it in over multiple days. The first time it was climbed in a single day was 1975. And they coined that as nose in a day, or NIAD is a big abbreviation a lot of people use. But this season, 2024, the average party will take not 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. The average party will fail to climb it. That's what's something pretty amazing about, is that half the parties, or a third the parties that go to the base and try to climb it, will back off because it was too hard for them. So that makes the average infinite, right? But those that succeed, still the average is probably 2 or 3 days, 3 days to climb the route. And nose in a day is commonly done by exceptionally experienced Yosemite climbers.
Amazing. Thank you for indulging us with that description. That book of yours, On the Nose, Hans, I'll confess, it had been sitting on my bookshelf. And then our recording just got scheduled on the last minute, and I scrambled to dust it off and start reading it. And I have heard you speak, and I have seen videos, and it's been present or omnipresent all through my 20-year-long climbing career. But I started reading it, and I was captivated. Your story of starting, of your first trip there, and of your first attempt there, and the writing as well. It really is gripping storytelling. Whether you are a climber or you're not a climber, I think it's a wonderful book. And I'm 45% through, as what Kindle tells me. And I know that we'll finish recording, and tonight I'll get back to that book.
Nice.
So I can get back to the rest of the stories.
And for, hey, your listeners, it's on Audible and iTunes, and you can also download it straight from my house, my website. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24/7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one-size-fits-all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode. And even more exciting, please stay on till the end, because we have some fun giveaways. And one of them is going to be a signed copy of the book by Hans himself. So stay tuned in. So moving on, Hans, one other question that I was thinking about when I was reading this book is, in the climbing community, we will sometimes go and do these climbing trips with people we have just met. I have done that. I've found people on Mountain Project. I found people at campsites and have tied in. and gone on and have had a beautiful adventure. To non-climbers, that seems kind of ludicrous that we would trust our life, quote unquote, with somebody we don't know very well. And I was reading how, I think it was, I forget who, but you have done that on the nose as well. You have gone and climbed this 3,000-foot wall with somebody you may not have known well. I want to ask you this. So, how do climbers end up trusting somebody they don't know, they might have just met, and do something like climb 3,000 feet of vertical rock?
I think of it, anyone can watch somebody belay someone else at the gym and go, okay, I see they're safe, or see that they're not safe. And then you could approach them and ask if they want to go outside climbing with you. So there's always, interview and test physically. I think of it as like, Warren Buffett, he's famous investor. He can probably look at a few key things about a business and investment and tell you, and know whether he's going to invest in it or not. I think as we climb, you've been climbing 20 years, you can assess by just the way people talk, and maybe you wouldn't even have to watch them climb. You'd know from things they say that, safety is important to them. I mean, by the mere fact that somebody's climbed 10 years, that's good. And they're standing in front of you, not in a wheelchair. That's probably number one. But did they climb once in the last 10 years or every weekend for 10 years? There's all these little things. But I think I'm kind of like Warren Buffett now. I've been climbing 40 years, and probably within a short amount of time, I can assess somebody's skill level. And, I probably wouldn't say no to climbing with somebody that I thought was, I'm not going to say unsafe. I'm going to say their experience with climbing is maybe they don't pay enough attention to how serious it is. Because somebody who is unsafe right now doesn't mean that I couldn't make them safe when they're climbing with me. Safety is super important, right? And I've seen stories of people who just don't get it. Maybe their attention span, maybe their attitude, whatever. And I may climb with them never or once, and that's it. All you people that I haven't called back for the second time climbing is because I love climbing with different people, not because you're unsafe or you weren't fun to climb with. I can't, I don't know what advice to give people that are searching on Mountain Project or Facebook or whatever groups online. It's been proposed, by the American Alpine Club to have a AAC universal belay card that you've been tested to the same standard as everyone else in the country, could be the world if we did it right. But, and it's frustrating for gym owners, right? Like, and people going to a new gym, it's like the ski pass. You have a bunch of ski passes on your thing. You go to a climbing gym, you got 17 belay cards. You're like, look, you don't really need to test me, do you? I've got all these belay cards.
Universal belay card. I'm intrigued by that concept. I'm also a little bit scared of how it might be implemented if it ever sees light of day. And talking of belay cards, one of my favorite things to notice is you go outside climbing to some remote part of the world, and people pull out their harnesses from their bags, and right on their belay loop they might have like a touchstone belay card on it, or wherever gym they go to, and they're like, and then I will ask them, hey, which touchstone gym you climb at, and they are so surprised that I'm like, you never took your belay card off before you boarded the plane to come climbing. So no surprise.
I try to be goofy and will wear mine most of the times at Crags, just so that no one else feels uncomfortable. I don't know. But it's kind of like a great conversation starter too, like what t-shirt you wear, or, if you're a Washington Redskins fan, or I don't know, something like that. Having your belay card, I think we shouldn't give people a bad time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Safety is such an important part of our sport. You have spent more time on vertical terrain than, in some ways, most people alive. What may be a couple of specific things, Hans, that you have adopted into your climbing routine that have kept you safe? I know that you may have had a couple of little skirmishes while climbing. For the most part, knock on wood, you've been a safe climber. Are there certain things that have kept you safer despite being able to climb really, really fast?
I think one of them is the advantage of embracing many, many partners is you learn different ways. And I'm actually going to the AMGA SBI, which is the single pitch instructor course in May, a month from now. And I know that there's certain little nuances of ways to do things that they might prefer. And they say specifically in their thing, there is more than one way to be safe. And I really appreciate reading that in their intro manual, is that there's more than one way to be safe. And if you learn by rote at a climbing gym, pass the figure eight through this way, and it comes out this way. I've seen people, you turn the figure eight upside down and they'll be like, hey, that doesn't look right. Okay, let me flip it over for you. And they're like, oh, they've never looked at it from the other side. Simple things like that, that's kind of not being fair to people. But I've seen, the Europeans will they'll use a screw link or a quick link that you'd find at a hardware store here in a lot of their clipping into things with aiders and stuff. And partly because I think it's cheaper, but it's a surefire locked steel ring. And they may have some other reasons for doing it. But my point more is that when you learn these other ways that are safe, then you aren't uncomfortable when you see something, new, because you're like, well, I've seen this is safe 3 ways, and here's a 4th way I haven't seen before. But if you only know one way, you'll be scared. And, being scared or ignorant is an unsafe attitude or feeling to have. You need to constantly educate yourself on new ways to do things, or new to you anyway. They might not be new to the other people.
Yeah, one can learn all kinds of techniques, including safety practices. And usually they are kind of fused together. The way people climb, safety or adherence to safety is embedded in those routines. And the more one climbs with different people and approaches new partners with that spirit of learning and curiosity, can help that person pick out those skills, which could help them with not only the climbing itself, but also become a better, safer climber. And I think it takes a certain amount of experience to recognize that, one can't just learn everything from one person, and maybe one person does ABC really well, but then XYZ may not as well. And pick and choose the best practices from the best people. And I think you have done that, with some of your early partners / mentors. You were able to learn and do, obviously some pretty trailblazing things. Talking of having many partners, you've had a diversity of partners over the years. Fun question. What might be 2 or 3 favorite qualities about that partner, and 2 or 3 qualities that were not your favorite? And sorry, not just from one partner, but from different partners. Some things you loved about your climbing partner, some things you absolutely detested. And I say that also with not just time on the rock. It could be time outside the rock, because as people know, when you sign up to climb with somebody, you are married to that person for the time of the climbing trip. So you share experience, observe all kinds of things. So yeah, curious, what are some of those things that you have enjoyed or not enjoyed over the years, Hans?
Well, we'll start with not enjoyed, because I mean, effectively, I can say quite solidly that if there's people that have qualities I don't enjoy, then I experience it with them once and I don't climb with them again, or don't adventure with them again. I don't try to change people too much, so because I don't like people lecturing to me either. Something might be, this sounds very like philosophical, but somebody who's interested in the summit or the end and not so much being present during the journey. It sounds very philosophical, but I point out that Yosemite is a ditch. And when you, quote, top out on El Cap or Half Dome, you're not on top of a peak like, some 2001 Space Odyssey on top of an obelisk. All you've done is crawled out of a ditch. You're not even at the highest point on the rim.
Yeah.
You still have to hike another couple hundred feet to get to, quote, the highest altitude point. Nobody does. It's about that face of climbing, the struggle for those 3,000 feet, which that is a excellent representation of about the journey, not the end, right? So people that go up with me for a half day or a 3/4 day and we get rained off and we're laughing as we're getting soaking wet and we're shivering, that type person that is like, instead of crying, they're laughing, like we're going to have a good story to tell when we get back to the bar, if we get back to the bar tonight and have a hot chocolate or whatever, hot toddy. That's the type person I like to go climbing with. And, to that, although I have suffered, often when I do public speaking for a bank, I always say bank or pharmaceutical or whatever, I have to explain I'm not the M word climber, which is mountaineer. I'm a t-shirt and shorts climber. I've dabbled in quite a bit of mountaineering, but I really like being present there with shirt off or t-shirt and shorts in the sun over, shivering in a snow cave and then bragging to my buddy in the bar, like, oh, I've suffered more than you. I know you haven't. I suffered even worse. There was a time I was stuck in this snow cave for 7 days or something, and I do think, I don't know. When someone says everyone should try it once, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't try mountaineering once. I've done it more than a couple times and done type 2 or 1, whatever, fun suffering. And it's interesting, but 95% of my climbing the last couple of decades has been t-shirts and shorts, sort of sunny climbing weather. So did I get to that question about partners? Partners need to be competent, which doesn't mean they need to climb hard. They just need to be competent at the skills of the adventure we're on, and that goes from every grade to 5-1 to 5-14. They need to be competent, and then they need to be easygoing, which means the outcome doesn't matter. We're going to have fun applying the skills we have with us to this, this terrain, whatever it is in front of us.
Mindset is indeed so important. Maybe even trumps climbing skill. Just being somebody who can fundamentally appreciate where they are and what they're doing, and take things in a positive light than not, because end of the day, climbing is a recreational activity. And just the fact that we're able to climb is such a privilege. One thing I was reading in your book, Hans, and which struck a note was, I think it was with Peter Croft, or I forget who, I think it might have been him, or maybe somebody else. But anyway, you were 25 and you were about midway up the nose, and you were, I think, quite exhausted or nervous for some reason, and you were not ready to lead some pitch, and you asked your partner to switch off with you, and you reflected that you had that kind of self-awareness at that age, which I was also impressed by when I was reading that, because I know that my ego has sometimes kept me from acknowledging some of those constraints, fear, fatigue, etc. when I'm climbing. And I've sometimes made decisions to continue climbing instead of stopping or switching leads because I was afraid to look bad. So I just want to say that is one quality that I also love in a climbing partner, which is just acknowledgement of where they might be, because if they undertake something that they're not prepared for, it just puts the entire team in jeopardy.
Yeah. And I'll say that at age 25, I was probably 15 years of experience as an athlete, although I had only been climbing 6 years then. So I knew how to inventory my physical body probably better than most climbers that had been only climbing 5 or 6 years, just because I've been a lifelong athlete since, I started doing organized sports, I guess, at age, whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I look back and I did a lot of things that a normal 20 something, 30 something would do, over their head. But I commented on that very one because, it's probably more the exception that I turn back and let someone else take the lead. And that's a figurative as well as literal thing, is that let someone else take the lead. That I'm impressed with my younger self that I did that.
Super. Just maybe last question on this topic, Hans. Any 2 or 3 best practices to stay safe yet efficient on like big walls or even a short multi-pitch or single pitch climb? We need to tie a good figure eight. So inspect your partner, tie a good knot. Any other things you have learned that you may want to share with listeners?
Yes. This is, I think, super important is no matter how experienced you are, here's a classic introduction for someone I've climbed with the first time. I'm like, hey, I know I'm this celebrity climber. You've seen me on the cover of climbing magazines and in videos and all that, but like, I fall sometimes. And you can look at my crotch and check the knot, check the belay thing and all that, and I won't be insulted. Because I'm going to check yours and I don't want you to be insulted. I will check yours, so I don't want you to be insulted when I look at your crotch. And I've just added a little bit of humor there because, oh, why are you staring at my crotch? And that humor is glue that glues the idea, the concept in your head. Like, check people's crotch. A lot goes on there. The belt is doubled back. The belay device is correctly loaded in on the rope and on your belay loop, and your knot's tied. So there is a lot going on right there. And being humble is another great word. I'm humble enough to let you stare at my crotch and to see if I am being safe. I'll never be insulted by you checking me for safety. I may slip up, but I invite people when they arrive at a multi-pitch anchor, hey, look here, this is the way I set it up. Is this feel okay for you?
Thanks. Absolutely. Yes. One is never too famous, or one should never feel too intimidated either in the company of somebody who's famous, to ensure that they are doing the right thing, because we have had famous climbers in our midst who have made, simple mistakes that either have been fatal or could have been fatal. 100% agree with what you just said. One other thing I was pondering, Hans, about speed climbing on the nose. We have had so many records that have been set and broken over the last, let's say, three odd decades of doing speed climbing. I haven't seen many, or maybe any, women, and I could be wrong because I haven't made it through to the end of your book yet, but have there been any women? And if there have or haven't been, what do you think is stopping women from embracing, let's say, speed climbing, given that the first person to free the nose was Lynn Hill, a woman? And there are many women, I think, who go and climb nose in a day and do, slower, but still commendable ascents on El Cap. So curious, where are women with speed climbing on the nose?
So, I mean, we all know that, Lynn Hill beat whatever men to free climbing the nose. So it's the physicalness of it is not the challenge. And by the way, the season prior to Lynn freeing the nose, she climbed the nose with me, and me and her set the speed record for female male ascent. It's okay, I think, whatever. I'm okay with saying female male ascent and double female ascent and transgender ascent, whatever. Keep all these records. It's great to give people recognition. I think the female record is somewhere around 5 hours. So there is a lot of women climbing fast up there. And the male female record now is 4.5 hours, set some 10 years ago, I think, or more. What else do I want to say? I've recently, this last season, I climbed the nose 6 times, and I got past, and I climbed alongside of a number of women that are on the search and rescue crew at Yosemite, Kate and Michelle, and they just go out for like their day off and climb the nose in, 11, 12, 13 hours, like bada boom, no problem. And they're not trying to get a speed record. That's just casual for them. So I'm sure if they put their skills to it, it would have a result. More than just naming them as females or whatever. You won't see anyone get the speed record on any El Cap route that's under the age of 20, even though gymnastically kids 18, 19, 20 are winning World Cups. They won't win the speed record on El Cap because they don't have a driver's license, right? Until they're 16 or 18. And women have had a more difficult time living in the outdoors, in remote areas, historically. And that's, changing. You see just as many women doing van life as men almost now, and at crags. And so they're getting out there and being more and more comfortable. And that's what it takes, is time in Yosemite and getting good at those skills. And they have that ability more so now than they did before. Lynn was an anomaly. She could move around in the climbing world with more exceptionally than most men. And I mean move not only on the rock, but amongst the communities in the camping and the climbing world so that she could make the connections. It takes a huge support crew to climb the nose free. And she has the personality that could manifest that. So that's being more and more the case now. I watch later this season. I am hoping to do some things with women on El Cap. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes.
I shrug my shoulder and like I'm cowering a little bit because I am a white privileged male and I want to help everyone can have access to climbing, but I just pause because I'm a white privileged male and why does it have to be, why does it have to be him that's teaching us? And I'm like, well, I'm offering,
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this. White, privileged, and blonde to boot.
Yeah.
Sorry, couldn't resist that. Absolutely, Hans. Thank you for that answer. Really appreciate it. And you have done so much to open the doors to climbers and just people of all abilities and levels to access the sport of climbing that we love so much. You have taken the time out, the resources out to do that. And yes, awaiting what's to unravel this year with what you're just talking about. Excited to see.
I'm turning the big 6-0 for your Ageless Athlete podcast, people. 6-0 in 2.5 months here. I'll see if my body can hold up to do some fun things.
You are ageless indeed, Hans. Happy early birthday to you. Talking of doing different things over the years, you started a family while you were still peaking, let's say, as a climber, as an athlete. How did that change you? And did you think you made any sacrifices with your climbing to be a family person?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into dictionary too deep, but sacrifice is an interesting word. I like trade better. You trade one thing for another because trade is like, it's the beaver quilt isn't worth the loaf of bread. Then you go, okay, I want 3 loaves of bread. And now it's even. It's not a sacrifice. It's an even trade, Spending time with babies and toddlers and little kids and teenagers is crazy rewarding. It's harder than climbing, the work to get in to get that reward, but it's a different reward than going out and, running up a 514 at a sport clag or climbing Mount Everest or climbing a long multi-pitch route in Red Rocks. It's different. It's not a sacrifice. It's just different. But I will say that the things or the climbing that I think 95% of what people know me for, those things, those feats of climbing that I've done, I did after I was a parent. I believe that the reason is when you are obsessed and love something as much as climbing and you have all these other obligations like raising kids, when you go climb, you plan much more and you go like, okay, I've got a hall pass from the family on, Sunday. So let's see, I'll plan it and I'll get the right partner together and we'll go up, Saturday night and we will launch. And I can't tell you how many of my friends, Peter Coward, Greg Murphy, Jim Herson, that are all working 50 hours a week in a white collar job in the Bay Area that's 4 hours from El Cap and kids. And we would they would, we'd team up and like, okay, we're leaving Friday at 6 p.m. We get into Yosemite at, midnight, sleep for 6 hours, and then climb all day Saturday, drink coffee and drive home Saturday night, mow the lawn, play with the kids Sunday, and then you'd have red bloodshot eyes Monday morning at work, But you did something really big and incredible because you planned all week, you thought about it, you imagined it, you visualized it, and maybe you got into the climbing gym Tuesday and Wednesday night, during the week to keep yourself fit and limber. But I think that is, I've done all my biggest, most notable things people know me for since I became a parent, because I focused the time I was climbing to do the big things that I wanted to. I think if I had just been a knucklehead bachelor roaming around in my van, I would have been, oh yeah, I'm climbing today, oh, I'm climbing tomorrow, climbing the next day, I climbed last week. I don't know how much planning I might have done to pull off bigger things.
Yeah, thank you for that. Love the answer. And actually, just to flip the question, do you think that having a career, having a family, having that all-rounded aspect of your life has actually helped you perhaps succeed in a greater capacity with your climbing goals?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I questioned like, hey, I don't want to be a guide or, I don't know, run a climbing gym, because that would mean I'm mixing my climbing with my sustenance, meaning, or my work. People use the word work. Your work is different than what you are, or your work is different than your play. Climbing, I love so much. I didn't want it to be reliant on it for my income. So, and I've worn a lot of hats, accountant, project manager, health club, climbing gym manager. Finally, I did run a climbing gym from 2010 to 2019. I was mature enough at that point that I really, really enjoyed the business part of, because running the climbing gym is more managing people than it is, guiding people at climbing. So
you have certainly reinvented yourself as a professional. You have done a few different things, maybe starting in a white collar profession to doing other things. Many professional climbers that we know, like you said, they are living out of vans and they're still doing extraordinary things. How have you found that balance, or what's allowed you to keep shifting into new things? Has it been just drive to keep learning new things? Is it been something else that's allowed you to manage your climbing and your family better? What's been sort of that catalyst to hence doing different things with your career? And actually, I should ask you last question there to add one on is, what are you doing now when you're not climbing?
not much. Actually, I became a grandfather 4 months ago. So we've gone up and we're being supportive of my daughter, Katie. She's got a little baby, Arwen, and moved up to Arcata. So that's, we're there geographically to be supportive grandparents is one thing. Of course, mom and pa want most of the baby time, so we get to do other stuff. Okay. One of the things is the mindset of a beginner, right? Like, if you're a beginner, you're going to make mistakes because you're trying something new, right? This is very philosophical, professional speaker stuff, but like the people who are the most successful in the world are the people who have made the most failures, right? They're not afraid to fail, right? And like, I just went surfing for my first time at age 59 last month. We went down to Nicaragua and I failed to get up on the surfboard many times, but I did get up on it by the end of the week. And yeah, I did all right because of just various skateboarding and snowboarding skills over the past long lifetime I've had. But yeah, I'm a 5'2" surfer now after 1 week in Nicaragua, maybe 5'1". I don't know. Some surfers would say I'm not even fifth class, but yeah.
I noticed your trip to Nicaragua, Hans, and I think you had titled your post with something like, trying something new or something on those lines. And it was so great to see that you were up for jumping into a new sport for you. What is important about trying new things? Why is it important for you to be learning surfing, which is kind of intimidating for many people, just like climbing is, but also for somebody who is a new grandfather.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together, training, aging, mindset, and all, you will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Well, let me help everybody remember this with the acronym TNT, which is dynamite, right? Try new things. You've said it 3 times or 4 times already, but TNT, dynamite. It's really dynamite's good for your for your life. Trying new things. And I'm gonna plug here DHT, which is do hard things. DHT challenge is a thing I came up with in 2010, which just we made a list of things to do for the year. And at first it was like, hey, let's do something hard, like let's do 513s, or let's do V9, or let's do a marathon, or let's challenge people to go to 5 different gyms. And then someone said, well, could we do something like serve 3 hours at a soup kitchen or volunteer at hospice or something? I'm like, that'd be hard. And they're like, yeah, it's do hard things, right? I'm like, okay. So we'd add things like that, and we'd add things like write a handwritten note and mail it to somebody, because people don't do that anymore. Call 3 friends you haven't talked to in 3 months and just say, hello, I appreciate you in my life. That actually may not sound hard to some people, but to others, it's like, oh, okay. And we made a list of things for people to do at the gym, and people would come up to me and be like, that's so cool. I called a friend that I hadn't talked to, and I'm so glad you suggested that to me. And I'm like, well, I didn't suggest it to you. The community made it up this list. It wasn't just me, because I can come up things like I think are hard for me, 513 or whatever, and people will be like, well, sounds like serving 3 hours in a soup kitchen is harder for you, Hans. I'm like, yeah, you're right. All right. That would be hard for me. But I think, willing to go and look like a beginner. And I not only looked, but was a beginner at surfing is a mindset that's good to have. And I get, I'm thinking of the classic sort of, 27-year-old person out in their van trying to get that next grade, the 13C or 14B or whatever they're trying for. And that's their focus, just that. And that's what they're good at. It is wonderful to master something or become expert at and spend 10,000 hours at it. At the same time, it's refreshing to go and try, bow and arrow, archery or something, and you can't even hit the haystack. And it's great to see rapid recruitment of skills in another thing. And I often find that rounding out of your skills only is going to help your climbing. And I do go around and teach clinics, and this is very important, is the Karate Kid movies. And they call it Kung Fu in the later versions of the Karate Kid movies, is like everything is Kung Fu, right? Everything is karate. Hanging your jacket on the hook is Kung Fu. Well, I say everything is climbing. I'm washing the dishes. I spread and do the splits on the ground because I'm so tall. Otherwise, I'm arching my back over to get my hands in the sink to clean the dishes. So I'm spreading my feet and doing the splits and trying to stay flexible and stuff. And washing the dishes is climbing, whatever. So trying new things keeps you learning, I guess. You can always bring it back to climbing.
I love that, Hans. I like that so much. Trying new things, TNT and DHT, do hard things.
Yeah, dhtchallenge.com. Go there. It's free.
Okay.
It's a fun community trying a bunch of wacky stuff
That is a great inspirational nugget there.
Here we go. I'm holding a sticker up of our little goat. Our goat is our mascot.
It's a great sticker. And for people who are not watching this, Hans has a great shirt as well. Hans, can you wear a Mr. El Cap shirt if you haven't climbed El Cap? Is that like not allowed?
Well, gosh, it's killing me. I'm trying. I hope I remember this kid's name. A young man was wearing this shirt in El Cap, and he walked up to me, and I pointed at him like I kind of gave him an odd look because I'm kind of funny, and he's like, "I know, I shouldn't be wearing this shirt. You should." I'm like, "No, no. I mean, have you climbed El Cap?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing like you." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Whoever smiles the most is the best climber." Anyway, he came back a week later when we were there for actually a memorial on El Cap Meadow, and he happened to know I was there, and he went home, laundered this shirt, and then gave it to me. It was just so sweet. Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, I've never seen this shirt anywhere, but guess they got it in the gift shop.
I love it. It's great. Talking of El Cap and talking of speed climbing, you were doing speed climbing on plastic. You were winning competitions, Hans, as a young athlete, and you were climbing on El Cap and setting records on El Cap on the weekends. And I was just thinking that is such a extraordinary combination. If you think of speed climbers today, I think they barely climb outside, perhaps, and they certainly don't climb big walls. What allowed you to transfer skills from El Cap over to speed climbing?
Yeah, over the weekend?
Or vice versa. Yeah, I'm just such a curious to hear a reflection on that.
I'm in the right place at the right time is one thing. There was a time in the 1800s where the same person could win the 100-meter dash and the marathon because the sport was young. That's basically my luck of the draw of being early on in the sport. Diane Russell, she's a woman climber who was competitive at the same time as me. She was the only other person to win speed climbing and difficulty at the same national event. And again, that goes back to, 1800s, somebody probably could win the 100, the 200, the 400, and the mile all at the same track meet because the sport was so young. There was a young lady actually in the last 5 years that won speed climbing and difficulty climbing. And whoever you were, young lady, I think I gave you kudos online. It's amazing. A much bigger, crazy achievement now than back then. I was in the right place at the right time. And yes, I actually set the speed record on the nose with Steve Schneider one weekend, and the following weekend won the nationals championships at City Rock in Berkeley. Not the best training, for one for the other, but that was the state of the sport then. We surmised that the final route that I sent at that thing was probably 13B because they left it up in the gym and we checked it. And, nowadays 13B is like the qualifier before the semifinal or something you have to send. So it's, just different time.
That makes sense the way you explain it. Different time, and the degree of specialization didn't exist back then as it does today. Curious, do you follow competitive sports, actually competitive climbing? And because you used to compete in speed, wondering how you think about how remarkable the athletes are today who are, I think, climbing the speed wall in a handful of seconds. Like, I wonder what goes through your mind when you see those people and they're flying up this wall. And when you were setting those records, I think you were amazing for that time, but maybe a little bit slower.
I know all the numbers, so it's easy for people to quantitatively compare us. The second X Games, the wall was about 45 feet high or 40 feet high. And the World Cup is 12 meters, I believe, which would be more than that, maybe 45 or 50 feet high. Anyway, it's 5 feet longer than the speed route we did back then. And they do it in 5.5 or now 5 seconds flat. We did it in 17 and 18 seconds, first and second place back then. So it took us 3 times as long to get up a wall that was just, 5 or 10 feet shorter than what they're doing now. And, they changed the grade or the route every competition back then. So it might have been a 5.9 one time and a 5.12. Vividly remember in France, they okay, let's make it so the difficulty climbers have a chance at speed. Let's make it a 12B route. And I think I took third there instead of first. And some young Spanish climber that was on sighting 5.13s at the time won. Yeah, but it wasn't particularly fast. You can imagine speed climbing 5.12B wouldn't be 5 seconds. It was more like, I don't know, 50 seconds or something.
You specialize in speed climbing and you specialize in big walls, but you also have this rigorous approach to training, Hans, from what I can see, and you have been so quantified and planned with the approach to keep improving upon your climbing on the nose. I'm curious as to how you didn't take that approach and your natural personality to something like sport climbing or bouldering. To be honest, I'm not completely sure where you are with other kinds of climbing these days. With your talent, if you had, I don't know, if you ever focused on the difficulty end of the sport, you would excel as well. Is it the fact that you were not as inspired by sport climbing, or is it paucity of time? Because, for example, like some of the people that you have roped up with over the years, people like Yuji Hirayama, for instance, he was also known for excelling with difficulty and single pitch climbing. What is it that has maybe kept you from also pushing the boundaries with sport climbing?
Wow, Yuji's an excellent person to call out to talk about here on this particular angle, because Yuji lives in Japan mostly now, and there is no Yosemite there. There is no. I think they have a handful of multi-pitch routes there, but they might be 2 or 3 pitches. He's so proximity wise, he lives and is raising a family and operating businesses near a place that doesn't have multi-pitch long endurance climbing. It has single pitch and bouldering problems, and he excels at those because that's what his home area is, and he loves climbing, and he's got to have an outlet near where he lives. So I don't know. I just saw a thread, which is another app born from Instagram for you older people like me, and I saw Yuji said, people see that I'm bouldering and sport climbing, but trad climbing is something that's always been historically great for me. And I hope people do go out and experience trad climbing, because there's really a lot to be enjoyed from it, and this, that, and the other. And so I think his heart is there, but he just loves the movement of climbing like I do. And obviously he loves competition. He just crushed in competitions all over the world as well. I was a competitor before climbing in track and field and soccer and other things. And so that was a timing thing. Again, you ask, how come I haven't been known? Well, I mean, I won 2 or 3 national comps. I did it purely out of my ability to train and be competitive, because you got to remember in 1990, 91, 92, up to 95 and beyond, that those early days, a lot of the climbers, I remember Jeff Lowe trying to decide who would go to the 1989 Snowbird and Nationals. And he's like, well, send your resume. And, like Jim Carn and these people like, well, I sent a 513B at Smith Rock. It was like this very, very subjective resume you could send in, and I'm like, oh, I climbed the nose once, and I won a local competition in, Los Angeles, where there was 12 people in the comp, so what does that mean? Maybe they were all 5, 6 climbers. Yeah. So it's a bit silly. What I'm getting to is that there were climbers there was a dozen climbers at a national competition that were better climbers than me. And I would place first, second, or third because I knew the climbing competition was coming up. So I trained for plastic climbing competition, which was very hard to do in 1990 because there was only 2 gyms in the country. And I happened to be near City Rock, right, where there was one. By 91, there was 10 climbing gyms, which is still not many, right? So nobody knew, including myself, how to train exactly for a climbing competition coming up. But it was so important to me that I not only climbed so hard that I didn't look like I was a good climber at the gym, but I knew, you rest 2 or even 3 days before a comp. And a lot of climbers, picture cut off blue jean shorts and they go climbing because they love nature and stuff. They probably climbed Friday before the comp on Saturday. And I would beat them because simply I rested longer and I attacked the plastic in a way that was I was just more experienced at plastic. Nowadays, that's no such thing. Competitors at climbing competition, they're all crazy experienced at plastic, right? We used to joke that you go to climbing competition and you see, whatever, there's only 60, maybe 100 maybe only 60 different holds in the world, or certainly in the US. So you knew every hold on the route when you looked up it before you got to, you knew that they, but now you don't know holds. There's so many, there's tens of thousands of different handholds, right?
You were training with an intensity and you were somehow able to balance your career and family and weekend warrioring at the nose. Were there certain things, Hans, that you adopted with your training which helped you excel with climbing on the nose? Because you were not living in Yosemite Meadows, as a full-time climber. You were training at the
Yeah.
gym. And I'm just curious, like what kind of training were you doing back then? And also, what kind of training are you doing today? Because you still have El Cap ascents on the horizon. One last thing I will throw in there. Many years ago, I remember, I think I met you at one of the Touchstone climbing comps or something. And this could be totally apocryphal, but I heard somebody say that, oh yeah, Hans, he will only allow himself to watch television if he's also doing sit-ups as he's watching television. So is that true?
Not entirely, no. I kick back sometimes. That's funny. We added a challenge to our list. We have this list every year that comes out and changes every year. This year was watch a 12 series episode on Netflix or whatever, Amazon, and do whatever 240 reps of an exercise of your choice during the episodes, because it's year 2024. Yeah, we had that challenge. But no, I don't do exercise all the time when I watch movies, but it is a good way to pass the time while you're watching a movie. And to that point, like how do you train when you have all these other things going? There's always somebody training harder than you. That's truth. And there's always someone in a more crazy place than you. And I think of triathletes, like what a crazy choice as a parent. I mean, you got to train your cycling, you got to train your swimming, you got to train your running, and the hours that you got to spend on a bike to be fit on a bike is just nuts. I mean, you hear of a parent getting up at 3 a.m. and going swimming for 2 hours or whatever, and then they get on their bike for 2 hours. Then they take the kids to school, and then they go to work for 8 hours, and then the evening they come back and do a run. And you're like, okay, that's way more than I would train for climbing. So well, why would they do that? How do they have the energy to do that? When I was training for the nose record with Yuji, I was working 30 hours, maybe 40 hours sometimes a week at an architect engineering firm. And I would get up at 4. Luckily, there was a gym in Oakland, Great Western Power Company. I would go in and I would train for 3 hours, 5 to 8, and then I'd take a shower and I'd head to work. And I'd found like, exercise is way better than coffee for waking you up and keeping you psyched. And I'd get home and I'd have dinner with the wife and kids, and then I'd put them to bed, and I'd probably go to sleep fairly early, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I wouldn't repeat because the next day I'd need a rest after that. But I only train twice a week for doing the nose record, but I do like 3-4 hours in the morning really, really hard. And the reason I was able to motivate or inspire myself to do that was I just saw the smile on Yuji's face, and I saw in my head, I envisioned, the excitement I would feel and the butterflies at being at the base of El Cap and looking up there and, visualizing those 31 pitches. Anybody that has been obsessed with something knows that you will change the regular course of human activity to pursue that obsession. So
5 to 8 a.m. in the morning before going to work, and making sure to get your good night's rest by going to bed at 8:30 or 9. And I think the only way for me to be able to put in that kind of focus is when I have a goal in front of me. Otherwise, it's hard to motivate. I think you indirectly pointed to the power of goal setting. Any specific things you were doing in your training routine, Hans, which allowed you to maintain that kind of fitness? We don't have to get into specifics, but were you climbing a lot of routes at the gym? How did you balance, let's say, on the wall training with off the wall training, besides doing those countless sit-ups?
Right. Well, one thing is great is that, like Kung Fu or karate climbing, it uses every part of your body. So no matter what part of your body is tired, you can train something else. And, sit ups, actually, the front of your body core strength is not as important as the rear part of your body core strength. And so you want to work everything core strength, sides and front and back. Why am I saying that? And we didn't want to get into details. Just everything is climbing, everything is karate. When I'm doing sit ups in the gym for that 3 hours in the morning, I visualize like I'm holding some position. And if you're watching on video, I'm like holding my hand up and my toe down here, which is myofascial train in your body. It's lengthenal core strength. And I'm envisioning the climbing part of it. To that end, though, more specific is that there was cracks at the Touchstone gyms that I went to, and I would stuff my hands in cracks and climb up and down repeatedly and try to do the route the hard way, do my thumbs down, my thumbs up, my palms face left, my palms face right, so that I'm kind of making the crack different every time I go up, using the footholds around the crack, not using the footholds around the crack, all that sort of stuff. And, I climb just regular face climbs in the gym as well, but it's just volume of climbing. And the whole time I'm envisioning perhaps a pitch or two on the nose while I'm doing it. It's your body visualizing why you're doing something is hugely helpful. I mean, I've seen interviews with people that, high-end martial artists that do movies with Jackie Chan, and they're like, oh yeah, when I'm doing the tissues, I'm on the splits, one foot up on the counter, while that sort of thing. Everything's karate. You're just so without getting specifics, when I teach clinics, I say, hey, if you're doing a crunch, if you're doing a plank, whatever, think, feel, visualize what move on whatever bouldering project you're doing or climbing route or goal you have, and think like, yeah, I need this core strength or this fitness for that. I'm going to apply this later,
For sure, you were able to think of specific kinds of movement needs and strength needs and find a way to train for them within the walls of a climbing gym. And sounds like, yeah, that paid off well. And I love that expression again. Everything is karate. Just made me wonder. There is this sort of famous sport climb in Bishop at Pine Creek called "Everything Is Karate." I think FA'd by Chris Sharma a few years ago, and now it's seen a few more since. Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a connection between that expression.
Oh, I didn't know he did that. Way to go, Sharma. Is it hard?
14D, not hard, not so hard for him
geez.
maybe, but yeah, for the rest of us,
yeah,
not easy for for anybody really. Hans, with so much climbing volume over the decades, you have been so consistent. Have you had injuries? Are there any kind of limitations that you have to work through? Curious as to how you have maintained to stay in fine fettle over the years.
Yeah. I've had overuse injuries, strained tendons. I've had 3 knee operations, all of them orthoscopic. When we rotate our knees in the Egyptian sort of drop knee position from sport climbing and then put pressure on it, it's anatomically really terrible on your meniscus. Your bones are aligned really well to rip your meniscus. And I ripped both of my meniscuses. Luckily for me, good genes or whatever, they just went in and cleaned out the rip, and I just have less cushion in my knees than most people. So I had those operations. And then I broke my thumb one time in Patagonia, taking a fall that probably should have broken my back, but I ended up with a broken thumb. Interesting side note, the emergency visit in Puerto Natales was $35. They splinted my thumb and x-rayed it. After 35 years of climbing, had my first large enough accident that I needed to be rescued. I broke my right heel and my left tib fib falling about 17 feet on El Cap, hit a ledge. That was 2018. That was tough. Wheelchair for 2 months, crutches for 2 months, knee scooter for a month. Yeah. And fortunate for me, everything came back. I was running a year afterward.
Yeah. How about today? Are there any injuries or maybe overuse stresses that you have to work around as you train and climb?
Right now I'm in Tahoe as I'm talking to you, and I just got foot surgery 5 days 5 days ago. Elective. It's called Morton's neuroma. It's very common in women who wear, it's usually women who wear high heel, very tight shoes because it squeezes your forefoot together, much like climbing shoes. So it's probable we'll see a lot more climbers getting this operation decades into wearing tight shoes. It's just a pinched nerve between your second and third toe. And for me, 99% of the time, it doesn't bother me, but just the right twisting, of course, in a crack or oddly on a foothold makes it feel like a knife is being driven into your foot. But as soon as you take your foot off of that position, for me anyway, the pain goes away rather quickly. So I don't have to get the operation, but I did. And now I'll have a little teeny 1-inch numb spot between those two toes, maybe forever, but maybe it'll come back. But that's kind of the most recent thing. But I've been biking and hiking and climbing all through that, and surfing, paddleboarding.
You mentioned it's elective. What I'm gauging is that without the surgery, you would still have been able to do most things, but maybe jamming your foot in contorted positions was not something you were able to do.
Not with an with boldness that I will be, hopefully, if the surgery works. I mean, we all feel discomfort in our climbing shoes after a while wearing them if we're wearing tight shoes, and we feel discomfort stuffing them a crack. But you, just like hand jamming, you get used to it. You learn how to place your hand in there and squeeze on it so that the pain isn't detrimental to breaking your bones or breaking the skin. And with feet, it's the same way. I mean, yeah, my feet hurt stuffing them in a crack even when they were at their healthiest, but it was something that you can mitigate by just rotating your foot and taking it out after a while. But with this Morton's neuroma, it was so painful that you're in enough pain that you might jump out of the crack, and being on lead, that wouldn't be a good idea. It's so distracting. It's not worth the climbing pain.
The way you described it, made me certainly want to make sure that if I ever have those issues come up, I tackle them early. Any kind of prehab drills, Hans, that you do today?
I'll say the number one thing that kept me healthy when I was sport climbing at my best was contrast bath for my hands, because your hands are the thing. Forearms and hands and elbows are the most likely thing to get an overuse into injury from bouldering and sport climbing, I think. And so if I was on the road, I'd find a cold stream to soak my hands in at the end of the day, and then let them thaw, and then put them back in again, let them thaw, put them back in again. Plug for Physivantage. Collagen has been shown and proven that it takes collagen right to your muci polysaccharides area, is what the building blocks of tendons are, and it takes it there to your fingers. It's like all your body parts, your tendons and your muscles, you stress them and then they grow stronger for you. Humans are amazing. And by the way, it works when you're 60. Well, I'm not 60 yet, but it works when you're 20, and it works when you're 30 and 40, maybe not at the same level, but you're stressing your tendons, your muscles, and then your body says, oh, I got to make those stronger to be ready for the future. So one way is fueling yourself with good food and supplements. The other is your body responds to hot, cold on parts of your body. I've heard recent things about don't put ice on a swollen ankle or this, that, because your body's swelling up because that's what it's supposed to do. I don't want to say I know which is better, because I don't. But I do know when my hands are not injured, but just stuck in a cold bath and then in a warm water and then cold bath, they are way more flexible and just feel more alive, and you don't have that claw hand when you go to sleep at night. That can only be good to flush. Basically, you're flushing the area, right? Hot, cold, hot, cold. You're flushing fluids through your hands. There's a lot of small capillaries and small blood vessels, and to help the body carry stuff through the lymph node systems is just good. And hot and cold does that. Those compression sleeves do that as well. So if you can afford a massage, then get one.
What I gather is, if you're watching Netflix and you're not doing sit-ups, instead you should be doing those contrast baths by dipping your fingers and alternatively in hot versus cold environments. It's interesting that you do that. And cryotherapy, has taken off in the last decade, I think, where sometimes people have ice baths installed in their houses now. I see that as becoming somewhat popular in the surfing world, where a lot of like pro surfers have ice baths and maybe access to saunas, and they're going back and forth. Given the all body demands that climbing induces, I'm curious if climbers are also adopting whole body cryotherapy to recover from intense climbing sessions, because like what you said makes, it's science. You stimulate your body in a different way when you put it through those extremes of hot and cold. It has helped you and others also recover from the use of their fingers and their limbs and their arms. Maybe cryotherapy is being adopted by climbers more mainstream. I don't know if you knew any.
I think all athletes are investing time, and it looks like it's a win for any athlete is cold therapy. I mean, the Hoff method of dealing with cold is certainly popular, makes it sound less than what it is, but I mean it's good science and good human mind. Some of it's mind over matter, but definitely they're even showing like you're going to lose more weight by dropping yourself in a cold plunge every day than if you do, get your heart rate over 135 for an hour and sweat. You'll be better off. Your calories will burn off because you're trying to, adapt from that cold sensation. And I'm hearing all these wonderful things about cold therapy. Now you're going to have Eric Hurst on after me, or I don't know if you'll broadcast for him, but he's like Mr. Science about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I installed a infrared sauna at my house after visiting his place. Infrared saunas are really good for you, and at least the science shows. And cold water therapy is really good for you too. So throw it all at it, man.
Absolutely. And Hans, if you ever decide to take your newfound surfing skills and come surf with me in San Francisco around, and if you decide to not wear a wetsuit, I will understand where that is coming from.
Yeah. 81 degrees water down in Nicaragua. I like that. That was nice.
I spent a month and a half in Nicaragua like 6 years ago on a surf trip. Yeah, the surf it's obviously warm, but it's also really, really good. Yeah, great that you were able to fit that in. You are about to turn 60. From the rest of the world's perspective, you are still accomplishing exemplary things. You just mentioned that you have trips to climb the nose planned out for this year, so you are certainly not slacking. But from your own perspective, Hans, are you aging gracefully?
Oh, that's a matter of opinion, I guess.
From your opinion.
We all have seasons. The answer is I don't know, but my biggest, or I think everyone's most important, that's the right word, most important critic should be yourself. If you don't trust your own judgment of yourself, then I don't know. It seems like a pop psychology thing. You need to do some work on yourself. I just think that, like, why would you let anyone else decide whether you're doing a good job aging gracefully? You should decide. And I'm pretty happy with how I'm doing it. I'm pretty good with it. I've raised some kids. I know that parenting's lucky. I've been super lucky that my kids are wonderful. I had a decently long marriage of 17 years to get those kids so I've been partially effective at the classical Western monogamous marriage. I don't know. Some people would say it's a failure. I'd say it's a success of 17 years of good family stuff. And, I'm trying other sports. I'm biking a little bit more than I used to, and I'm paddleboard sporting more than I used to, and tried new things surfing. I don't know what grace is, but I think TNT, embracing new things or trying new things, is good.
Congrats on accomplishments so far, and for those yet to come. Any significant goals you have for the next 5 to 10 years, either with climbing or outside?
The thing I mentioned about, I didn't really say it this way because it's tricky, is that, taking people up the nose, you're going to be part of a time in their life that they'll never forget. So you become quote unquote immortal or memorable in their life. I'd like to move more to taking people climbing in places like Greece and Kalymnos. I'm actually teaming up with Heidi Wirtz, who's in her 50s, and she's been guiding her whole life, the wonderful spirit. She is living the guide climbing life. And she takes people to Cuba and Puerto Rico and Mexico and Colorado and Kalymnos, Greece, and all over the place, and does yoga climbing retreats. And so she's kind enough to partner with me to do some of that. So I think I enjoy, you stay young by taking people that it's new to them. It doesn't have to be younger people I'm taking climbing. It has to be people it should be people that I'm introducing to something new, or just introducing to a new crag, a new place to climb. I've been fortunate. I've gotten to climb around the world, and it's introduced me to some of the incredible things to see around the world. I, again, appreciate that I'm in a privileged place that I get to travel, but I'm going to take advantage of it and show other people it. It gives me great joy, and I think it inspires other people and motivates them to explore the world. Plug there. Look me up for guiding trips. Smile Mountain Guides. I'm teaching a multi-pitch climbing class in May this year. I don't know if the podcast will come up by then, but yeah.
It is such a honor to be able to pass on one's love for climbing, and I'm not just for your sake, but for everybody else's sake who is going to be lucky enough to be able to climb with you and learn with you and from you. And it just also makes me marvel at the sport of ours, where somebody like you, who's so accomplished in the world of climbing, can personally impart your knowledge to some new climber. This is not true in other mainstream sports. Most of us cannot aspire to go and learn how to swing a golf club with Tiger Woods or play ball with Michael Jordan. So
wow, we are on the same track. I use that example all the time. Whatever controversies there are about Tiger Woods, set those aside. It's like, you're not going to go golfing at your local club and then run into him at the tee off and he's going to give you some tips, So, or John McEnroe at the tennis club, yeah, it's not going to happen. But you might well run into Lynn Hill at the crag, and she might give you a tip on how to tie your chalk bag better or something. Yes.
Extraordinary how special our sport is. Hans, if you were to go back in time, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, what would you tell the young Hans on something that the young Hans should do either differently or double down on what he was doing?
As soon as I am about to open my mouth to say, I wish I had spent more time on this, I'm like, but what I was doing probably was just as hell of fun and brought my life to a different path. I mean, one thing I think about is like, hey, I climbed the nose with Lynn the season before she freed it. Why didn't I just help her out and, give it a try myself back then? I was nowhere near the free climber as her, but like maybe I could have gotten the second ascent seasons later and been the first male to free climb it. But I just, at that time, I just didn't have the commitment for that sort of climbing. I had that, at least that played out in my sport climbing. I'd go around to sport climbing areas and anything I could on-site, that's what I get on, and like, try to on-site a 13A, okay. But I'm not going to try 13B, C, Ds because those take me 2 or 3 tries. Too distracted. I want to go do more stuff rather than the same thing. So I don't have regrets and things that I tell my previous self that, hey, spend more effort here or there. I got super lucky. I invested in touchstone climbing, and that was something I didn't need to tell myself. And, it's like invest in Apple stock, I don't know. It's been absolute joy to be involved with the touchstone climbing gym community the whole time and just feel super lucky that I was there when they were building Mission Cliffs, and I've gotten to climb with the founder, Mark Melvin, many times. Just a joy to see true core climbers are at the base of this incredible company. I mean, that's just one aspect. There's just so many fortunate things. I just get so overloaded with all the things I'm fortunate and appreciative of rather than what I missed out on.
I think the fact that you double down on your passion, I think that it's hard to have regrets of that. I mean, it sounds like it paid off well for you to invest in the climbing community, but if it's something one loves, then it doesn't feel like such an effort. And I'm finding that actually with this podcast while I'm taking quote unquote a break from, a normal full-time career that pays the bills. And I'm doing this the show where honestly, even if this doesn't go anywhere, just the fact that I'm having the joy and the honor of speaking with people such as yourself, I'm like, I will never regret this. It's just fun because I love doing this. Reading your book over the weekend, quote unquote, which could be work, is not work because I might be doing that on the weekend anyway. So yeah, no, I think putting the effort into your passion is such a good way to set oneself up for whatever else is there to come. And just closing out, one out of just other questions. Any great habit or behavior over the last 5 years that has most impacted your life? And the try new things is certainly huge, but I sense that you've been doing that for most of your life. You have been doing different exciting things, but maybe something in the last few years that's been impactful.
Like meditation or not meditate. I have done some meditation, but I'm trying to think of I always kind of poke fun at Mill Valley, Berkeley, woofty poofty, I don't know, hippie Eastern stuff. Yet lots of my friends are involved with it one level or another. But journaling is something really interesting in it. I mean, I've written down in the back of my book on the nose every single ascent I did and who they were, and a sentence or two about what the ascent was. I mean, this book marks my 100th ascent of it. And there's chosen stories in the book of those things, but it's about journaling is measuring, monitoring, managing, manifesting, motivating. These M's are really easy to remember. It allows you to see where you were so you can improve on your past self. And I don't know if people think that's competitive or ambitious or whatever, but like it's neat to measure, your hand strength one week and then check it the next week and did it improve? But if you measure a bunch of things, something's going to improve. Like my flexibility improved, or my squats, or my bench press, or my speed up this route, or we assign quantitative numbers to the difficulty of routes, and like, I did 3 5.7s, or I did more to my journaling is I did 5 5.11s rather than I did a 5.13. It's not that it's more important to me. It's just that's just more my swing. Is that so? The M's I think is really important, is to journal what you do. Like people have a climbing journal of the routes they did. I heard Alex Honnold journals every climb he does, and he writes things down like, I didn't eat enough. It was humid out or hot out, and I didn't bring enough clothing, or something like that. Notes to himself. And in my day and age, we used to have day planners, and which I see they're still for sale nowadays, but I would write in a day planner, like I climbed this route at this time. And I would have business notes in there too, but I did a lot of physicality things. And it's cool to look back in those journals, those day planners from 1992, and look like, oh yeah, look at this. I climbed 12 routes in a day at a sport climbing area. Like, how did I have the fitness to do that? And so journaling and measuring where you're at so you can see where you're going. If it's just that simple. A torpedo doesn't hit a target by not knowing where it is. It's always correcting back to hit the ship or something. I don't know.
It does seem like many overachievers out there do seem to have a consistent writing or journaling practice. I am surprised actually that this practice is somewhat new to you, given that you have been so meticulous and quantified in your approach, at least when it came to tracking your climbing, tracking your ascents of the nose, and the way you planned for it, and the way you found ways to assess improvement. I would have thought that you have been journaling all through the decades.
Well, certainly there's a huge amount of journaling you keep as memory in your head. You don't write it down anywhere. So there's that. And all of us have different levels of capacity to store those things. I think kind of a basic thing that I learned as an athlete by the way, I didn't start climbing until I was 19. So I had a lot of life before I started. And I didn't full-time climb until I was 24 or 5. And people say, oh, you were a pro climber. I'm like, no, I was a full-time climber, but I wasn't a pro climber. One basic thing about training, I guess, and looking at a goal is track and field. You lift weights in October, November, December. Then you go out and you still kind of lift weights a little bit, which has nothing to do with running or pole vaulting or throwing a javelin, right? Lifting weights in the weight room. And it has nothing to do with rock climbing, but you stress your body, you gain muscle mass, and then come springtime, and I'm using that as both figuratively and literally, come springtime when you're going to go do whatever it is you're going to do, you start doing the technique, and you now coordinate those muscles that you stressed and grew in the fall. You coordinate them, you then apply them to the performance, and as track and field season goes on in the spring, you lift less and less, and then the last month or two of track and field, you lift no weights at all. You're only doing technique. You're only coordinating those muscles you grew in the fall, and then you repeat it in the year. And it's really simplistic. Some climbers don't come from an athletic background. They don't think of it that way. It was certainly not back in the 90s.
Thanks for that. How can people find you on the interwebs? And you shared some information about coaching and sorry, not coaching maybe, but climbing trips, a guided climbing that you've coming up. If people are interested, how can they get on those trips? Would you mind sharing some of that information?
So this is where I'm going to shamelessly plug, because I enjoy meeting new people and climbing with new people. Smile Mountain Guides is brave enough to let me guide for them in Colorado in the Front Range. That'll be May 14th. You can go to Smile Mountain Guides. Oh gosh, I think it's .com. But my most engaged platform is Instagram. People can, you can't probably direct message Tiger Woods, but you can direct message me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook occasionally, but mostly Instagram. And I have a website, hansflorine.com, which has stuff, and you can buy my audiobook there, Speed Climbing and On the Nose. I'd say just if you're plugged into my social media, Instagram, you'll see the announcements to go climbing with me in Greece or Mexico or wherever I might be going.
For those people who are timely and fortunate enough, you might get to climb and learn with Hans himself. So yeah, absolutely encourage people to go check your social feeds, your website for more information. We will put those links in the show notes of this podcast. And lastly, Hans, I believe there is an exciting giveaway. And I will announce the specifics of what people need to do. But what are we giving away with this show?
Well, we might give away more than we know right now, because I keep asking some people I have relationships with. But right now, we're going to give away some Physivantage product. Eric Hurst, the best research person known to doing cool physical things for climbing. He's got an awesome Physivantage brand of supplements. And then we're going to give away one of my books, On the Nose, I'll send to you. And Coros, interesting enough, Coros watches. It's a smart watch. I use it to measure, monitor, manage all of my stuff and manifest goals. It measures everything, altitude gain, all that stuff. And climbing pitches, we're going to give away a Coros heart rate monitor. And we'll have the details when we post on Instagram, the podcast being broadcast.
Perfect. And I think there's also possibly a signed copy of your book, On the Nose, that should be up for grabs.
Yep. Being that this is podcast listeners, I think we, given the choice of the audio version of the book too. Well, or maybe I'll throw that in too, so they can listen to it, because I was lucky enough to record it. And I should say a shout out because you complimented this writing. It's Jamie Moy. I was so lucky to meet her before she became super uber famous. She's won so many journalism rewards, and she made my stories readable and fun. So shout out to Jamie Moy for that.
The book is eminently readable. I like reading, and it is a page turner even for somebody who is already obsessed with climbing. I also recommend people watch this video that you have of you taking Jamie along with one other person up the nose. It's a great video. I'll make sure to add that link in the show notes as well. Hans, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Good luck with the healing.
Thanks.
All the best for your upcoming birthday. Thank you for the inspiration over the years.
You're so welcome. And I know you're local to the Bay Area, so when I come through, let's try to rope up together.
That would be amazing, Hans. It would be such an honor. Well, folks, that was the one and only Hans Florine sharing his incredible stories about El Capitan and what it takes to be a safe and successful climber. I hope you found his insights as inspiring as I did. If you want to dive deeper, grab a copy of Hans's fantastic book, On the Nose. Now get ready for an awesome giveaway. Sorry, only US residents are eligible for this raffle. We have got some incredible prizes for you, including a Coros heart rate monitor, $2.50 gift certificates to Physivantage products, and of course, a signed copy of On the Nose by Hans Florine himself. Here's how to enter. Create a post on Instagram tagging both this podcast handle and Hans's handle. Leave a review or rating for the Ageless Athlete podcast in your favorite podcast app. Send screenshots of both your Instagram post and your review rating to my email to kush@agelessathlete.co. We will announce the winner soon. This raffle is only eligible for people in the US. Now, if you get a chance, head over to Yosemite yourself and see or climb on the breathtaking El Capitan. Before you go, of course, if you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the podcast, and also leaving us a rating and review goes a long way in helping us get these stories out to more folks. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay adventurous, stay safe, and stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.